So this year I wanted to kind of challenge myself and just give myself a bit of an exercise and shoot more color, because I've primarily always shot black and white film for my personal work, and I wanted to see how that work would translate with color, and also just how and what I would shoot with color in mind. Over the last 15 years, I've shot a higher percentage of color this year versus black and white than I have in any other year, and I really wanted to just dig in and get better at it, because honestly, shooting color does make me shoot differently. Color has this really unique quality in setting a mood to the photo, and it kind of pulls you in and really makes you almost feel like you were there. Like it can really hit hard on nostalgia and start pulling memories out of it based on the light and the color that was in the scene there. It has something about it that really pulls you in. That's one reason why I've wanted to shoot color for one of my current projects on the deceased and their memories, because so much of it relies on memory. Whereas black and white feels a little bit more timeless and kind of cinematic in a way. It almost feels like you're looking at something from a dream rather than, being there physically. I don't know if it has to do with the color being stripped away, but there's just something timeless about black and white that I've always just kind of gravitated towards, because whenever I see a black and white photo, it just feels more as a photo where you're the viewer viewing the photo, whereas color almost kind of pulls you in. It's just not necessarily one better than the other, it's just those are the kind of things I've always felt about each, and that's probably why I've always been drawn to black and white. It just has this really kind of final, untouched feeling to it. It's really hard to explain. I have no idea if any of that made sense. Even though for years I've always shot black and white, I've always been really inspired by the work of William Albert Allard, especially with his color work, and it's been a heavy influence on a current project I'm working on as well, and naturally that has just kind of got me really thinking about all of this, and whether or not I should be shooting color and doing something completely different from what really feels like me for a big project that I'm taking on, because this is a year-long project. Do I commit to a year-long project shooting everything in color, even though it feels very different from the rest of my work, my personal work that is? This all relates really heavily to a recent video by Sean Tucker all about consistency, and if you haven't seen Sean's channel, you should definitely check it out. All of his videos are fascinating, but this one really struck a chord with me. In the video he talks all about consistency and just building a consistent look with your photography, and not to box yourself in and keep yourself from trying different things out and being creative, because you should always be doing that, but just being mindful about the work that you share and making sure everything has a clear and distinct style to it so that it's all consistent. And this all got me really thinking about my own photography and its consistency, or lack thereof, especially this year, just because this year has been such a transformative and really just experimental year for me, especially in regards to photography. This YouTube channel became my main job this year. I still do weddings and other photo jobs as well, but my day-to-day focus has been this YouTube channel since the start of the year. My job has essentially become sharing my personal work and talking about the thought process behind it, the gear that I use, all of those sorts of things, and it's a really strange job and it's hard to explain, and I've even tried a lot of different things and figuring out what works and what doesn't in regards to making these videos and not just the photography itself. And so this idea of giving myself a challenge and an exercise of shooting more color this year, it just popped in my head that this is kind of perfect, because I can try out different film stocks and kind of do things a little differently and out of the box from what I would normally do, and I can just share the results, and that just creates more content. And I kind of treat Instagram the same way. I've always looked at my Instagram as sort of a public journal where I share my ups and downs in regards to photography. Photography for me is an extremely personal tool. It's not just a creative outlet or a money-making tool, it's just how I interact with the world and the people around me, and I want to share the good and the bad, all of that with people, because I want it to be helpful for others. We're all human, we're all connected, and I feel like there's a lot to be learned from just everyday people like myself and like all of you guys. So because of this, my Instagram is extremely inconsistent. I'm putting out black and white work, color work, photos that didn't really turn out as well, what cameras I'm shooting with, and just putting everything out there essentially as a resource for other people. With this entire year being essentially one big experiment, I've had more inconsistency in regards to my photography this year than probably any other year before it. And in Sean's video, he mentions that you should still experiment and try different things out. Just be mindful of the work that you're sharing, because that's the work you're putting out into the world that's supposed to really represent you, which I fully agree with. However, I'm in a little bit of a different scenario because this is my job. You know, sharing all of these behind the scenes kind of things and being an open book, that's essentially what I've created my job to be. And even before it was my job, I've always been an open book kind of person. You can ask me anything and I'll tell you straight off the bat, but it's just up until recently, I hadn't really thought about any kind of long-term effects that has on my photography or how my photography is actually viewed. Now, since I've taken a step back and really started thinking about all of this, I've tried to figure out what about my work really feels like me and what stands out to me that just feels like me. And I recently got back a bunch of black and white film that I put through my M6 because I've been working on a lens comparison video, and immediately, as soon as I saw these photos, I realized that's what feels like me. For about 6 years now, despite trying a bunch of different cameras out, the M6, a 35mm lens, and black and white film has been my absolute constant. No matter what I was into or shooting at the time, that has always been at my side. Because of this, I unintentionally started creating a look to my photos that just feels like me. It just feels like home, and the whole reason I stuck with that setup was just because it's what I enjoyed shooting more than anything else. I wasn't trying to achieve a specific look or style and coming up with the perfect combination. It was just this organic series of events because I was just enjoying myself shooting with that specific setup. And so creating these videos and trying out a bunch of different cameras and lenses and things like that, it's a lot of fun, and I want to continue to do that because I want this channel to be helpful for people, because I'm constantly getting requests from people to try out a different camera, lens, film stock, lighting equipment. There's all kinds of things that people are asking me to talk about, and I want this to be helpful. But what is the long-term effect of that and this job on my photography? That's really what I've been thinking about. And it's not like I'm, this magnum photographer that's documenting these historic events of the world, and I'm not this high-profile commercial photographer. To me, I'm doing something much more important than that, and that's photographing my life and the people in it. That long-term effect might not matter to other people and how it affects my photography, but it matters to me because that's what photography is to me. It's everything. So I'm still figuring all of this out. I feel like I'll always be a work in progress, but I've been thinking about this a ton lately and writing about it and discussing it with other friends of mine, so I thought it would be worth sharing here. And if you'd like to join in on the discussion and share your own thoughts, definitely do that in the comments down below. Also, check out Sean's channel if you haven't already, especially the video on consistency. I can and have listened to Sean talk about all things photography for hours on end, and it's always great food for thought. But that's it for today, so I want to thank you guys for everything. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.